Hello friends, welcome to Ecoholics YouTube channel. My name is Avinash Agarwal, and in this video I'll be discussing with you economics current affairs for 23rd October 2024. I have selected two articles, one from yesterday and one from today. First article that we'll be discussing is a very long article. It's a very beautiful article. It is discussing everything that is right and wrong about Kerala's economy, right? So I'm sure that as students of economics at various points of time, we must have read that Kerala's human development indicators are absolutely fabulous. We must have read that literacy rate in Kerala is as high as that of European countries. The mortality rates are as low as European countries. Life expectancy at birth is phenomenally high, right? Access to healthcare, access to education, these are very strong in Kerala. We must have definitely read this as students of economics at some point or the other, I'm sure, right? Now what we'll be doing in this article is that we'll be understanding that what's really happening as of now in the Kerala economy, right? We call it the God's own country, right? But they have certain major economic challenges that they need to take care of. What are those economic challenges? What is the root of those economic challenges? That is what we'll be discussing first up. So let us start. Okay. So the start is very positive. This is typically, how you could probably try to start an essay if you are ever starting an essay introduction, right? That the introduction is speaking, or the story in the introduction is about the Vizhinjam International Transshipment Deep Water Multi-Purpose Seaport, right? So this Vizhinjam Seaport that I have highlighted over here, that I'm highlighting again over here, this Vizhinjam Seaport, this is India's deepest natural port, and it is our only container transshipment hub. What do I mean by container transshipment hub? So what we are doing is that we are loading these containers onto smaller feeder vessels, which will then go to various other ports in India. So until Vizhinjam Seaport started doing this, we used to have this transshipment business happening in probably Colombo or happening probably in Singapore, right? The fact that we have started doing this transshipment business ourselves, that is quite helpful, not just for our economy, but for also from, let's say, saving a foreign exchange point of view, also from giving a boost to India's GDP point of view, and so on and so forth, right? So this transshipment hub, it is ready for operations. It has been developed by Adani's, right? And जब से इन्होंने काम करना स्टार्ट करा है इस हब ने, ट्रांसशिपमेंट हब ने, so significant progress has been done, right? So the idea is that they have already unloaded 20-foot equivalent unit और TEU containers. 20-foot equivalent unit और TEU ये containers को measure करने का एक पैरामीटर है, एक मेट्रिक है. So they have already unloaded 75,000 TEUs. इनका टारगेट था that हम मार्च 2025 तक 60,000 TEUs को जो है टारगेट करेंगे. ऑलरेडी 75,000 TEUs को जो है इन्होंने अनलोड कर दिया है. दिस इज द स्ट्रेंथ ऑफ इंडियाज प्राइवेट सेक्टर, राइट? दैट they are not achieving the target, they are overachieving the target by a significant margin, right? And यही प्रकार का अप्रोच हमारे को आगे भी रखना है in a variety of problem solving solutions, right? प्रॉब्लम छोटी सी ये है कि ये पोर्ट तो हमने बहुत शानदार बना दिया, ये पोर्ट काम भी बहुत शानदार कर रहा है, but you have to be able to connect the port to, let us say, highways, सो दैट जो कंटेनर्स है उनको जो है क्विकली इवैक्यूएट करा जा सके, अपने डेस्टिनेशन की तरफ भेजा जा सके. प्रॉब्लम इज दैट इस पोर्ट को हम हाईवे से कनेक्ट नहीं करवा पाए हैं. मतलब हमने दुनिया को अपने आप से कनेक्ट कर लिया है, लेकिन पोर्ट को अपने आप से कनेक्ट नहीं करा है. देयर इज ओनली अ नैरो सिंगल लेन जो कि तिरुवनंतपुरम कन्याकुमारी हाईवे से इस पोर्ट को कनेक्ट करने लग रही है, एंड विल टेक एटलीस्ट 12 to 18 months टू डेवलप प्रॉपर कनेक्टिविटी बिटवीन द पोर्ट and our national highway network, which is unfortunate, right? But this is where we start discussing Kerala's problems. Kerala's problems are unfortunate problems too, right? अब जो state की economy है, it is in a little bit of a crisis, right? What is the crisis? Number one crisis is that इनका जो gross state domestic product है, it is not growing fast enough. नंबर टू प्रॉब्लम ये है कि दुनिया भर का जो एक्सपेंडिचर है, रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर है ऑन सैलरी, ऑन पेंशन एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ, that is very high. जो unproductive expenditure है, that is very high, right? There is a continuous gap, यानी कि revenue expenditure is greater than revenue received. Consistently Kerala के अंदर as well as various other states के अंदर ये problem है, but we are discussing about Kerala right now. So consistently revenue expenditure is greater than revenue received, and this is very unhealthy. Why? Because this is completely unproductive expenditure. See, if you are having capital expenditure which is high and उसकी वजह से आपको borrow करना पड़े, that is understandable. Because what is capital expenditure? Capital expenditure is money spent on making roads, on infrastructure, on creating PSUs, on buying land building machinery, right? So ये productive expenditure है. This will increase the production potential of your country, of your state. Why? Because you will have more factories, you will have better infrastructure, you will have more investments and so on and so forth. So capital expenditure high करने की वजह से जो आपके एरिया का जो potential GDP है वो increase हो जाता है, right? So हम capital expenditure के against कभी complain नहीं करेंगे. If you are borrowing money to spend on capital expenditure, we will never complain. But if you are borrowing money to pay salaries, if you are borrowing money to pay pension, then that is not very healthy. So the problem in Kerala is that Kerala is perpetually dependent on borrowing. Kerala is perpetually in debt, right? पूरा टाइम जो स्टेट है ना वो कर्जे के अंदर डूबा हुआ रहता है, ठीक है? Yes, the Kerala model of development is a success story. Yes, human development parameters which I mentioned, life expectancy, literacy levels, population control, these are excellent, right? But now the problem is that success जो केरला की थी in terms of population control, it is bringing about some demographic changes which is starting to hurt, right? And that is what we need to understand, that what is happening. We discussed this in yesterday's lecture. Kerala was extremely successful in controlling the birth rate. Kerala का infrastructure was so fantastic that death rate जो है वो भी काफी अच्छे से हमने डिक्लाइन करवाया, which is good. लाइफ एक्सपेक्टेंसी जो है उसको हमने काफी अच्छे से इंक्रीज करवाया बिकॉज ऑफ द अवेलेबिलिटी ऑफ मेडिकल फैसिलिटीज, राइट? कुल मिलाकर इसका मतलब ये है, राइट, दैट केरला की जो एल्डरली पॉपुलेशन है दैट इज मच हायर देन इंडियाज एल्डरली पॉपुलेशन. अगर इंडिया की एल्डरली पॉपुलेशन इज लेट्स से अराउंड 8% ऑफ इंडियाज पॉपुलेशन, तो केरला की एल्डरली पॉपुलेशन इज अराउंड 18% ऑफ केरलाज पॉपुलेशन. दैट इज वेयर द प्रॉब्लम लाइज, राइट? सो जो डेमोग्राफिक चेंजेस होने लग रहे हैं, राइट, that is something which is going to, that is something that we have to plan for. अब जैसे society is aging, people are living longer. Now if people are living longer, then they need support, and that support is given in the form of pension, that support is given in the form of health care budget, right? तो ये एक अपने आप में एक massive expenditure head जो है खुल चुका है. उसके अलावा जो रेमिटेंसेस का इनफ्लो का नेचर है वो भी चेंज हो रहा है. विल बी डिस्कसिंग दैट गोइंग अहेड, right? So again, let's come back to the problem. We have high level of debt, we have a higher elderly population, right, and we have a low retirement age. ठीक है, ये सबका जो cumulative outcome है, ठीक है, that is that the interest payment on loan is a very heavy burden for Kerala right now, right? Pension outflow is a heavy burden, salary outflow for employees and so on is a very heavy outflow for the state, right? तो जब स्टेट का इतना सारा पैसा इन सारे आइटम्स के ऊपर खर्ची हो जाता है, सो नेचुरल सी बात है कि जो डेवलपमेंटल एक्टिविटी के ऊपर पैसा खर्ची होना चाहिए वो पैसा अवेलेबल ही नहीं होता है, राइट? सो देयरफॉर वी नीड अ न्यू मॉडल ऑफ डेवलपमेंट. वी डोंट नीड अ न्यू मॉडल ऑफ डेवलपमेंट बिकॉज द अर्लियर मॉडल ऑफ डेवलपमेंट वाज सो बैड, राइट? अर्लियर मॉडल ऑफ डेवलपमेंट हैड इट्स ओन शॉर्टकमिंग्स. यस, earlier model of development got us great human development indicators, but now there are other genuine economic problems that we have to try and solve. And what Kerala is trying to do is that it is trying to boost industrial development. It is trying to take advantage of this Vizhinjam port. It is trying to attract investment. It surprised everybody when it performed superbly well on the ease of doing business rankings for 21-22. Kerala ने टॉप मार दिया इस रैंकिंग के ऊपर, एंड दे वांट टू कंप्लीटली गेट रिड ऑफ दिस एंटी इन्वेस्टर इमेज. यू प्रोबेबली नो पॉलिटिक्स अ लिटिल बेटर, राइट? सो आई एम अंडरस्टैंडिंग दैट यू नो दैट for a very long period of time, communist parties of various different colors and hues have ruled in Kerala. Now communist parties are not any problematic elements as such because they are doing everything constitutionally, right? But their ideological moorings have not exactly been in favor of promoting industrialization and promoting investments from private corporate sector, etc. Their focus was never on that aspect too much, right? They have done remarkably well in terms of bringing about human development. There are no doubts about that, but there is a lot more that these institutions now need to achieve in terms of getting the state ready for industrialization, getting the state ready for investment, right? Kerala ko often we call as a money order economy. Why do we call Kerala as a money order economy? Because Kerala के अंदर remittances are playing a very important role, right? अब जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल ले लीजिए कि आई टोल्ड यू दैट केरला का ह्यूमन डेवलपमेंट काफी अच्छा हुआ, एजुकेशन लोगों को दी गई, राइट, हेल्थ केयर, न्यूट्रिशन एक्सेट्रा लोगों को दिया गया, बट केरला ने लोगों को जॉब्स नहीं दिए, ठीक है? केरला के अंदर जॉब्स डिडंट गेट क्रिएटेड, सो एज अ रिजल्ट ऑफ विच व्हाट हैपेंड इज दैट व्हेन जॉब्स वर नॉट देयर, people started hunting for jobs outside Kerala, and outside Kerala meant people started hunting job in Gulf states. अब वो टाइम पे Gulf states were having an oil boom. They had realized that they have significant reserves of oil which they can, sort of extract, sell, earn, develop their economies and so on and so forth. So ऐसे करके people from Kerala started migrating to West Asia in huge numbers, right? So to put it in perspective, by 1998, 1.4 million Keralites, they were living outside the country. Nearly 94% of them were in Gulf states. This number reached 2.4 million by 2013. तो ये जो माइग्रेशन हुआ केरला से पर्टिकुलरली टुवर्ड्स गल्फ स्टेट्स, इट बिकेम अ मैसिव बून. व्हाई डिड इट बिकम अ मैसिव बून? बिकॉज वेस्ट एशिया के अंदर एक बहुत ही हेल्पफुल रूल था सो फार एज केरला इज कंसर्न. रूल ये था वेस्ट एशिया के अंदर दैट यू विल नॉट बी अलाउड टू ओन एसेट्स, यू विल नॉट बी अलाउड टू सेटल डाउन परमानेंटली इन आवर कंट्री, राइट? मीनिंग दैट यू कैन कम, यू कैन वर्क, यू कैन अर्न, बट यू कैन नॉट बाय एसेट्स. तो आदमी करे क्या? तो आदमी अपने पैसे को घर भेजता था, केरला वापस भेजता था. सो केरला स्टार्टेड अर्निंग ह्यूज अमाउंट ऑफ रेमिटेंसेस. टू गिव यू दैट पर्सपेक्टिव, 1998 के अंदर केरला रिसीव्ड अराउंड 13,600 करोड़ वर्थ ऑफ रेमिटेंसेस, which was 25% of the state's gross state domestic product. It was 1.9 times the government's revenue receipts. यानी कि रिच पीपल पुअर गवर्नमेंट का प्रॉब्लम यहां पर क्रिएट हो गया कि गवर्नमेंट के पास जितना पैसा आ रहा है उससे ज्यादा तो लोगों के घर में पैसा आ रहा है. अब लोगों के घर में पैसा आ रहा है तो लोग उस पैसे का क्या करेंगे? कंजम्पशन बूम. पीपल स्टार्टेड बाइंग गोल्ड, पीपल स्टार्टेड बाइंग कंज्यूमर गुड्स, पीपल स्टार्टेड बिल्डिंग हाउसेस. एंड यहीं पर वो जो केरला का जो प्रॉब्लम है, केरला की इकोनॉमी का जो प्रॉब्लम है, वो प्रॉब्लम जो है बहुत ज्यादा कंपाउंड हो जाता है. केरला कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स समथिंग कॉल्ड एज अ डच डिजीज. Now let me explain what was the Dutch disease to you. To then and then I will help you understand कि केरला को डच डिजीज की बीमारी कैसे लगी, राइट? सो 1959 के अंदर ग्रोनिंजन नेचुरल गैस फील्ड, 1959 के अंदर ग्रोनिंजन नेचुरल गैस फील्ड, दिस बिकेम द लार्जेस्ट गैस फील्ड इन यूरोप, ठीक है? इट वाज डिस्कवर्ड इन द नेदरलैंड्स. और इस गैस फील्ड के अंदर से नेचुरली हम लोग क्या कर रहे थे कि गैस एक्सट्रैक्ट कर रहे थे, एक्सपोर्ट कर रहे थे. एक्सपोर्ट करके जो है वी वर अर्निंग अ सिग्निफिकेंट अमाउंट ऑफ फॉरेन एक्सचेंज. वो फॉरेन एक्सचेंज जब नेदरलैंड्स के अंदर आ रहा था, सो दैट वाज कॉजिंग एन अप्रिसिएशन ऑफ द लोकल करेंसी, राइट? बिकॉज जैसे अगर इंडिया के अंदर डॉलर का सिग्निफिकेंट इनफ्लो आएगा, राइट, सो डॉलर विल बिकम चीप इन इंडिया, मीनिंग रूपी विल अप्रिशिएट. सेम वे, एग्जैक्टली द सेम वे जो आपकी नेदरलैंड्स की लोकल करेंसी है, दैट स्टार्टेड अप्रिशिएटिंग. एंड आप जानते हैं that theoretically speaking appreciation, it will harm the exporters and it will benefit the importers because import will become cheap, right? So netherlands के अंदर वही हुआ. नेदरलैंड्स ने करी एक्सपोर्ट गैस एकदम धड़ल्ले से, फॉरेन एक्सचेंज कमाया एकदम जोरदार तरीके से, राइट? अपनी करेंसी का अप्रिसिएशन करवा दिया गिल्डार का, राइट? इंपोर्ट्स बिकेम डैम चीप, राइट? एंड अल्टीमेटली मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर in Netherlands was killed because it was not competitive anymore, because सब कुछ import करा जा सकता था बड़े सस्ते में, right? Same thing happened with Kerala in a slightly different manner. Strong remittances का inflow आया from West Asia, consumption के अंदर भारी boom आया, people started building houses like crazy, so construction sector के अंदर बहुत ही भारी boom आया. उसकी वजह से जो wages है laborers के वो increase हो गए, because आपको labor आसानी से मिलेगा नहीं construction करने के लिए. और जब wages increase हो गए laborers के, सो नेचुरल सी बात है कि एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर के अंदर वेजेस लेबर काम नहीं करेगा क्योंकि वहां पर वेजेस विल बी लो. मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर को अगर सर्वाइव करना है, सो दे विल हैव टू पे हाई वेजेस व्हिच दे विल नॉट पे. सो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कंपनीज दे स्टार्टेड शिफ्टिंग आउट ऑफ केरला टू तमिलनाडु and so on and so forth. So agriculture becomes unremunerative, industry starts shifting out of Kerala. और इसका impact आपको आंकड़ों के अंदर दिखाई देगा दोस्तों. आपको आंकड़ों के अंदर दिखाई देगा कि एग्रीकल्चर इज अकाउंटिंग फॉर जस्ट 9% of the of the gross state domestic product. Industry is accounting for just 28% of the gross state domestic product. And don't start clapping कि वाह वाह 28% है. Out of that, construction is the majority and not manufacturing, right? Followed by services sector contributing 63% of the GSDP. अब service sector predominant होना एक अपने आप में एक प्रॉब्लम बन सकता है, बिकॉज until 1990 सर्विस को तो हम टैक्स भी नहीं कर सकते थे, until GST services were not being taxed effectively. So ultimately coming to the problem of poor government, rich people. Successive governments in Kerala, they were not able to raise taxes. केरला का जो कलेक्शन एफिशिएंसी है वो काफी पुअर है. रेंट सीकिंग बिहेवियर आपको वहां की ब्यूरोक्रेसी के अंदर देखने को मिलेगा, राइट? अ स्टेट विच इज कंज्यूमिंग 20% ऑफ इंडियाज गोल्ड डिस्पाइट हैविंग जस्ट 2.7% ऑफ इंडियाज पॉपुलेशन टेल्स यू दैट लोगों के पास कितना पैसा है एंड वहां की गवर्नमेंट कितनी गरीब है. That's a problem, and that is a problem that the central government has started highlighting, that Kerala, you are having debt, you are having interest burden, you can collect taxes but can't collect, but are not collecting taxes, you are making your own problem worse for yourselves, please help yourself out, right? That is the broad stand that the central government is taking. Of course, we are not discussing center state relationships vis-a-vis Kerala over here in this particular article at least, but that is a problem over here, right? So state के tax revenue between this 6-year period, it grew by just 6.5%, which was even less than the nominal growth rate of the state GDP, which was around 8.5%. Because normally आप क्या expect करते हैं कि tax revenue would increase at the same speed at the state GDP is growing, right? But that is not happening in case of Kerala. राइट, सो दे डोंट हैव द फंड्स टू इवन मीट रूटीन एक्सपेंसेस. जैसे कि मैंने आपको कहा कि देयर इज अ रेवेन्यू डेफिसिट. व्हाट इज रेवेन्यू डेफिसिट? रेवेन्यू डेफिसिट इज दैट योर रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर इज ग्रेटर देन योर रेवेन्यू रिसीट्स, राइट? सो देयर इज अ रेवेन्यू डेफिसिट ऑफ नियरली 28,000 करोड़ जिसको आपको बोरो करना पड़ेगा, एंड मोस्ट ऑफ योर बोरोइंग्स आर गोइंग टुवर्ड्स मीटिंग रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर, यानी कि आप पैसा वेस्ट करने लग रहे हो एंड अपने आप को डेप्ट ट्रैप के अंदर जो है फंसाने लग रहे हो, राइट? एज आई हैव एक्सप्लेन टू यू that most of the revenue receipts of most governments in India, they are used for spending on committed expenditure. Committed expenditure is salary, pension and interest, right? और जो प्रोडक्टिव एक्सपेंडिचर है जैसे सच एज बिल्डिंग रोड्स, बिल्डिंग इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, उसे इग्नोर कर दिया गया है. सो बार बार में ये पॉइंट आने लग रहा है, एंड यू हैव टू टाई दिस पॉइंट बैक टू दिस विजिंजम सी पोर्ट, राइट? कि विजिंजम सी पोर्ट हैज बीन क्रिएटेड, बट जो नेसेसरी आजू बाजू में इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है दैट हैज नॉट बीन क्रिएटेड, एंड दैट इज केरला's failure over here. You can always say that the government of India could have helped themselves out, right? But why not, right? So the idea is that if you look at capital expenditure as a share of state GDP, that is 1.4%. It is far lower than most states. This is a good time to look at the chart that I had shared with you above. This is the chart that you need to look at, right? If you look at the state GDP ka growth rate, Gujarat is at 7%, right? Where is my state? Maharashtra. Right, my state Maharashtra is at 4.4%, very bad, right? And if you look at Kerala, it is at 4.1%, right? So this is the state GDP ka growth rate. This is CAGR, that is compounded annual real growth rate between financial year 17-18 and financial year 23-24, right? So this is not 1 year ka growth rate, this is a long term trend, right? And you can see that how well Gujarat is performing, how well, let us say, states such as Telangana is performing, or Tamil Nadu is performing, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka are performing, right? And how badly is the, Kerala and Uttarakhand and probably my state Maharashtra is performing. You look at the debt level in Kerala, right? So Kerala borrows to fund its revenue expenditure. You can clearly see over here, right? I will just zoom in a little bit, making it easier for you guys, ठीक है? तो यू कैन सी दैट केरला के अंदर द डेप्ट लेवल इज प्रिटी स्ट्रॉन्ग. इट्स काफी ज्यादा लेवल के ऊपर डेप्ट जो है दे आर बोरोइंग, राइट? इफ यू लुक एट रेमिटेंसेस, राइट? सो रेमिटेंसेस डेफिनेटली इंक्रीज हो रहे हैं एब्सोल्यूट टर्म्स के अंदर, राइट? डेफिनेटली रेमिटेंसेस इज इंक्रीजिंग इन एब्सोल्यूट टर्म, बट एज अ परसेंटेज ऑफ नेट स्टेट डोमेस्टिक प्रोडक्ट, as a percentage of net state domestic product, it is changing, it is varying, right? So let's discuss this issue further ahead, right? This is a very important article. We have still not concluded this article, right? So इसको मैं आपको logical conclusion की तरफ लेकर जाता हूँ इस article को, right? So see, the idea is that Kerala is now becoming, whether it likes it or not, Kerala is now becoming the geriatric capital of the country, because of the elderly population. The share of elderly population in Kerala society, it is much higher than the rest of the country, right? Like I mentioned to you that अगर India के अंदर 7% of India's population is above 60, Kerala के अंदर 17% of its population is above 60, right? Now the nature and the trend of migration is also changing, right? First of all, the number of migrants is declining, and there is a separate problem that we need to discuss so far as migration is concerned, right? अब जो माइग्रेशन होने लग रहा है, इट इज हैपनिंग टू यूएस, यूरोप, कनाडा, ऑस्ट्रेलिया एंड न्यूजीलैंड. यहाँ पर बच्चे पढ़ने जा रहे हैं, एंड जब बच्चा बाहर पढ़ने जाता है तो मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम्स दे सेटल अब्रॉड. And most of the times when you are settling in US, Europe, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, you will spend money over there. You will spend money on buying a property over there, establishing your roots over there. So you are not going to be sending money back to Kerala. So there is a very real possibility that the remittance flow back to Kerala from international migration may come down. To put some numbers, nearly 250,000 students left the state to study abroad in 2023. 50,000 करोड़ रुपया उन्होंने जाके बाहर स्पेंड करा है, राइट? सो दिस इज अ मैसिव आउटफ्लो ऑफ मनी दैट इज हैपनिंग फ्रॉम केरला, राइट? सो कहाँ हम पहले इनफ्लो की बात करते थे और कहाँ अभी आउटफ्लो की बात कर रहे हैं. दिस इज नॉट द ओनली आउटफ्लो. नाउ आप जानते हैं कि केरला के अंदर वेजेस आर हाई, सो पीपल फ्रॉम यूपी, बिहार, वेस्ट बंगाल एंड अदर स्टेट्स ऑफ इंडिया, दे आर कमिंग टू वर्क इन केरला, right? Because Kerala is not having labor surplus, but it is definitely having demand for labor, right? So people are coming in from various parts of the country to work in Kerala, right? So 3.5 million domestic migrants, 3.5 million domestic migrants, they are working in Kerala. They earn money and they send their money back to their villages, back to their towns, back to wherever they came from, right? So जो domestic migrants है, they are earning in Kerala and they are sending back 40,000 crore every year from Kerala. So this amount of money is going out of Kerala because of domestic migrants working in Kerala. We saw that this amount of money is going out of Kerala because students who are migrating out of Kerala. So every year now there is a massive outflow of money that is also happening from Kerala, right? So going ahead, we can expect that remittances which are coming into Kerala and were supporting the state will probably fall, which is again why you need to understand why you need to boost industries, why you need to boost terrorism, tourism, I'm very sorry, right? And so on and so forth, right? So the idea over here is that the government is trying to do its bit, right? They want Kerala to become an investor friendly state, right? They've already met 4,000 entrepreneurs, they're attracting entrepreneurs and so on and so forth, right? They've identified 22 knowledge economy based priority sectors such as GCCs, food processing, medical devices manufacturing, and this makes sense because इतना ज़्यादा literate state है, right? People are so highly educated over there that if you complement literacy with skill development, right? So immediately there will be a massive boost of availability of highly skilled labor force in Kerala, and आज के दिन industry को चाहिए skilled labor more than anything else, right? So definitely this can work out in Kerala's favor going ahead, right? So state government says that in this time period, nearly 3 lakh MSMEs, they have started operations. 20,000 crore worth of investments have come in, employing around 654,000 people in the state, right? What about large manufacturing companies? Right? So Kerala says that we don't want large scale manufacturing, right? Why? Because large scale manufacturing companies, they need large parcel of land, right? And Kerala ki ecology is sensitive, right? So they say that we want knowledge based industries, we want MSMEs to come into our state, right? So another thing that Kerala is not talking about is the strong presence of trade unions, right? So government says that the presence of trade unions or the strength of trade unions in Kerala, that's a perception issue, right? That no company has ever been affected by labor issue in the last 3 decades, right? So the state is saying that we have topped in ease of doing business ranking, not because our trade unions are a problem, but everything else is so good in Kerala, right? So the idea over here is that there are a lot of strengths that Kerala can bank upon. There are a lot of problems that we need to solve. And I have given you a detailed download of what is happening in Kerala's economy, right? Completely free of political discussion, completely free of center state discord, etc., etc. This is a very factual, a very objective download of what has been happening in Kerala. This is a beautiful article that was published in the Mint newspaper that I have been able to discuss with you guys, right? My one article is pending from yesterday's discussion. I would like to complete that because I promised you all that I will complete it, right? So this article is speaking about what's happening in agriculture, right? Now, if you see the data or statistics, so more rural households are now agricultural, right? Now let us look at this particular data over here and let's understand what's happening, right? So the question is, this is the question that we are trying to answer, that is dependence on farming for livelihood and incomes rising? This is the question that we are asking, right? That for a very long period of time people were coming out of agriculture and moving into industries and services. The dependence of households on agriculture as a sector was coming down. Is this something which is reversing? This is a question that we are trying to answer, right? So what we are discussing is the All India Rural Financial Inclusion Survey 21-22. This is the survey that we are discussing. Very important survey, right? This was earlier released in October 2024. This survey is saying that 57%, this is a very important number for you, please note it down. 57% of rural households in the country, right, including households in semi-urban centers with population less than 50,000, they were agricultural households, right? And the previous edition of the survey, which was done in 2016-17, it said 48% of the households were agriculture. So how is it that the number of households who are being tagged as agricultural has increased from 48% to 57%? So this survey was commissioned by NABARD. It defined agricultural households as such, right? That if you reported a total value of produce from farming exceeding rupees 6,500, चाहे कल्टीवेशन से हो, चाहे हॉर्टिकल्चर से हो, चाहे लाइव स्टॉक से हो, चाहे पोल्ट्री से हो, चाहे एक्वाकल्चर से हो, चाहे सेरीकल्चर से हो, चाहे एपीकल्चर से हो, if you are reporting a total value of produce from farming exceeding 6,500 rupees and you have at least one member who was self-employed in such activities during the reference period, right? So इसको जो है हमने use करा as a definition for defining households as agricultural households. I'm sure that immediately you are understanding that this may be problematic. You may say कि 6,500 तो बहुत कम है, right? Any household which is having any kind of allied activities or any kind of parcel of land 6,500 रुपए का produce कर ही देगा. And somebody or the other may be working in farming. So let's say that husband wife है. Let's say that I am the wife, I am working in the field because my husband he has gone to a town or a city to do some other job, right? So typically that is what happens in the agricultural households, that ultimately men migrate and women are left behind and they have to take care of the field because nobody else is there to take care of the field because parents have gotten old, children are too small, right, too young, right? So that's the problem, right? So is this number justified? So let's see, let's understand what is this, what this article is saying, right? So share of rural households who are identified as agriculture based on the above definition, guys, we are basing everything on the above definition, has gone up in nearly all the states. हर स्टेट के अंदर ये इंक्रीज हुआ है, right? Again some important numbers coming your way. All India average monthly income of agricultural households, all India average monthly income of agricultural households approximately 13,600 crores as compared to, let us say, 11,400 crore for non-agricultural rural households, right? So agricultural rural households are having a larger income as compared to non-agricultural rural households, and that is understandable. Why? Because these guys must be landowners, इनके पास asset होगा, ये लोग कुछ ना कुछ allied activity करते होंगे. Non-agricultural rural households mostly casual laborers होंगे, ये assetless होंगे, landless होंगे, right? So this is understandable. This is understandable mostly. This is my interpretation. थोड़ा बहुत आप लोग समझिए इस चीज को, right? Now percentage of agricultural households, right? So that's the number that we are looking at, ठीक है? So all India का जो number है, that is 57. So again just reiterating थोड़ा सा, right? 57% of rural households in the country, right? 57% of the rural households in the country, they were agricultural. So we are looking at rural households as a set, और उसके अंदर से कितने agricultural है उसके बारे में हम बात कर रहे हैं. I would like to reiterate this point over here that we are looking at rural households और उसके अंदर कितने agricultural is what we are identifying, right? So that number is 57% for all India, ठीक है? केरला का नंबर आप देखिए कितना कम है, राइट, रूरल हाउस होल्ड्स। आप देख सकते हैं कि एग्रीकल्चर इज नॉट सो इंपॉर्टेंट इन केरला लाइक वी डिस्कस इन द प्रीवियस आर्टिकल। एक आर्टिकल अगर दूसरे आर्टिकल को सपोर्ट करता है यानी कि आपकी लर्निंग पूरी हो रही है, राइट। एक आर्टिकल मिंट का है, एक आर्टिकल इंडियन एक्सप्रेस का है, दोनों आर्टिकल, दोनों अनरिलेटेड आर्टिकल जो एक दूसरे को सपोर्ट करते हैं, तो आपको समझ में आना चाहिए कि हाँ, थिंग्स आर गोइंग इन द राइट डायरेक्शन। एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर, एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर शेयर ऑफ वर्कफोर्स की अगर बात करें, विच इज समथिंग दैट वी कीप टॉकिंग अबाउट, राइट, एज स्टूडेंट्स ऑफ इकोनॉमिक्स वी हैव ऑलवेज सेड, राइट, दैट वी नीड टू पुल पीपल आउट ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर, ट्रांसफर देम इनटू इंडस्ट्रीज, ट्रांसफर देम इनटू सर्विसेज। इससे जो है डेवलपमेंट होगा, पर कैपिटा इनकम इंक्रीज होगा, प्रोडक्टिविटी इंक्रीज होगा, राइट, वैल्यू एडिशन इंक्रीज होगा, राइट, यही डेवलपमेंट का रास्ता है, बिकॉज अमेरिका और यूरोप इसी रास्ते पे चले हैं, राइट। यू मस्ट हैव स्टडीड ऑल दीज थिंग्स, राइट, you must have read all these things, right? So agriculture sector's share of workforce, it has been declining, right? But if you see this particular trend over here, then this is not a very healthy trend over here, right? So we were having 42.5% of our workforce in agriculture, that has increased to 46.1 by 23-24. The data that we are using is coming from governmental sources, thankfully. So the data is coming from NSSO ka surveys and the periodic labor force survey from 2017-18, right? This is not a very healthy trend. It shows that probably jobs are not enough in manufacturing or services, which is why people are sticking around in agriculture, right? Within agricultural household, contribution of cultivation and animal husbandry to total income was 45% as compared to 43%, यानी कि these activities are contributing more to the household income, right? So the idea is that most साइज क्लासेस ऑफ लैंड के लिए, चाहे आपके पास छोटा लैंड हो, मोटा लैंड हो, मीडियम लैंड हो, मोस्ट के लिए ये देखने को मिलने लग रहा था। तो आपके पास छोटा लैंड है तो योर कंट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ कल्टीवेशन एंड एनिमल हस्बेंड्री इंक्रीज फ्रॉम 23 to 27, राइट। आपके पास मीडियम साइज लैंड है तो इंक्रीज फ्रॉम 38 to 42। आपके पास बड़ा लैंड है तो इट इंक्रीज फ्रॉम 52 to 64। आपके पास और बड़ा लैंड है तो इट इंक्रीज फ्रॉम 58 to 71, राइट। सो द आइडिया इज फेयरली स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड एंड फेयरली क्लियर दैट रूरल इंडिया का जो रिलायंस ऑन एग्रीकल्चर है दैट हैज गॉन अप, इट हैज शार्पली इंक्रीज्ड, राइट। जो एग्रीकल्चरल हाउस होल्ड है उनकी इनकम फ्रॉम कल्टीवेशन एटसेट्रा इज इंक्रीजिंग, राइट, उनकी इनकम इज इंक्रीजिंग। एंड इफ यू लुक एट non-farm sources of income, be it government job, private job, self-employment, wage labor, rent, deposit, investment, right, इनका share has come down, right, इनका share has come down, right. So the idea over here is straightforward, right. There is a higher share of agricultural households in our country, in our economy, right, and incomes are less diversified, meaning that you are more dependent on agriculture, तो कल को इफ यू देर इज अ प्रॉब्लम इन एग्रीकल्चर यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड दैट द इम्पैक्ट विल बी मोर स्ट्रांगली फेल्ड बाय दीज हाउस होल्ड्स। कल को देर इज एन इम्पैक्ट ऑन एग्रीकल्चर, देर विल बी मोर नंबर ऑफ हाउस होल्ड्स विल फील द इम्पैक्ट एंड द इम्पैक्ट दैट दे विल फील विल बी मोर, राइट। सो दिस इज व्हाट वी नीड टू ट्राई एंड रैप आवर हेड्स अराउंड कि ऐसा क्यों होने लग रहा है, राइट, व्हाई इज दिस हैपनिंग, राइट। सो द आइडिया ओवर हियर इज दैट लॉकडाउन के दौरान रिस्ट्रिक्शंस लगाए थे, राइट। सो एग्रीकल्चर वाज नॉट समथिंग विच वाज इम्पैक्टेड बिकॉज एग्रीकल्चर के अंदर या रूरल एरियाज के अंदर लॉकडाउन नहीं लगाया जा सकता था, राइट। सो देयर वाजंट मच ऑफ अ डिसरप्शन इन एग्रीकल्चर, रेस्ट ऑफ द इकोनॉमी वाज मैसिवली डिसरप्टेड, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग एंड सर्विसेज, बट एग्रीकल्चर वाज नॉट डिसरप्टेड। प्लस इंडिया के पास जो है 4 कंसेक्यूटिव गुड मॉनसून ईयर्स आए हैं फ्रॉम 2019, राइट, टिल नाउ, ठीक है। तो मॉनसून हैज नॉट played spoil sport over here, right. These are some of the numbers over here, right. Apart from this we are saying that there may be an overestimation of agriculture share in rural livelihoods, so we have to be a little careful, right. There is additional source of data which is saying that Indians are increasingly returning to farming, so whether it is NSSO's PLFS survey, right, agriculture engaged 64.6% of the workforce in 93-94, and this is the number that we have already discussed, so there is no point repeating it, that 2018-19 में 42.5% of the workforce was in agriculture and thereafter it increased to 46.5%, right. One addition needs to be made over here, right, that this 46.1 is a non-COVID year, right. So don't think that अच्छा कोविड के टाइम पे लॉकडाउन लगा तो लोग फार्मिंग कर रहे हैं तो क्या बुरा है। We are talking about 23-24, my friends, right. Keep that in mind. What is the paradox, right? एग्रीकल्चर का जो शेयर है इट हैज रिमेन्ड एलिवेटेड आफ्टर द पैंडेमिक, दैट इज व्हाट आई एम जस्ट पॉइंटिंग आउट टू यू, राइट, कि पैंडेमिक खत्म हो गया, उसके बाद भी पीपल आर स्टिकिंग अराउंड इन एग्रीकल्चर एज पर पीएलएफएस, राइट. Agriculture, it has employed nearly 58% of the workforce, rural workforce in 1819. It has increased to 61% in 2019-20. It remains close to 60% in 23-24. तो रूरल एरियाज के अंदर भी लोग एग्रीकल्चर के ऊपर ज्यादा डिपेंडेंट है, राइट. सो चाहे नाबार्ड का डेटा हो चाहे पीएलएफएस का डेटा हो, क्लियरली शोइंग दैट people are sticking around in agriculture. There are more number of people in agriculture, right? So this is a paradox, right? So whether you can explain it via lack of jobs in manufacturing, right? Because manufacturing, it is employing only 11.4% of India's workforce in 23-24, down from 12.6% in 2011-12 and 12.1% in 2018-19. These are extremely crucial numbers, guys. आपको ये numbers note down करने चाहिए, आपको इनको अपने answers के अंदर use करना चाहिए. They are fresh numbers. This is exactly why we do current affairs discussion, because many a times we don't get an opportunity to update everything on a daily basis in our notes that we use for studying. This is where current affairs is supposed to help us the most, right? जो manufacturing share of employment है, that was below that of trade, hotels and restaurants, 12.2%, construction 12%, right? So जो surplus labor agriculture के अंदर जा रहा है, right? So the movement of surplus labor in agriculture is occurring, if at all, not from farms to factories, right? So that is what we need to understand over here. ठीक है, एग्रीकल्चर के अंदर एम्प्लॉयमेंट इज प्रॉब्लमेटिक बिकॉज वहां पर जो आपकी मार्जिनल प्रोडक्टिविटी आउटपुट पर वर्कर वो लो रहती है, राइट. आप वहां पर ज्यादा से ज्यादा सब्सिस्टेंस वेजेस कमा सकते हो, आप वहां पे ज्यादा से ज्यादा इनफॉर्मल काम कर सकते हो. दैट इज अ प्रॉब्लम इन वर्किंग इन एग्रीकल्चर. सो अगर आप डेटा देखोगे, राइट, सो हाईएस्ट शेयर ऑफ लेबर फोर्स एम्प्लॉयड इन एग्रीकल्चर छत्तीसगढ़ के अंदर है 63%, फॉलोड बाय मध्य प्रदेश 61, उत्तर प्रदेश 55, बिहार 54, हिमाचल 54, राजस्थान 51, झारखंड 50, राइट. गोवा के अंदर, केरला के अंदर, पंजाब के अंदर, हरियाणा के अंदर, तमिलनाडु एंड वेस्ट बंगाल के अंदर रिलेटिवली लेस पीपल आर वर्किंग इन एग्रीकल्चर, राइट. सो दैट इज व्हाट वी नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड, राइट. सो हमारा जो इकोनॉमी है उसका साइज इंक्रीज फ्रॉम 1.8 ट्रिलियन to 3.5 trillion in 23, right, and we are more dependent on agriculture for employment. This should be a subject for debate among economists, and you can very well expect a question coming in the exam on this. और कोई भी टॉपिक पे क्वेश्चन आए ना आए, बट इस टॉपिक के ऊपर 100% आपके सामने क्वेश्चन आने वाला है, so you better be prepared. With this, we'll bring this session to an end. We'll meet tomorrow again and we'll take things ahead. Until then, thank you so much. All the best and Jai Hind to all of you. Bye bye.